Good morning and good evening, everyone coming to us from wherever you are. We are so glad you could join us today for yet another session where we get to discuss healthy aging. My name is Dr. Lydia Atambo, and today we'll be tackling a very important topic, stress. And so in our previous episode, we were able to discuss healthy aging, where we defined the term healthy aging. And then we went on to describe the different components that can enable us to age in a graceful manner. And so what we realized was that stress is one of the things that can make us to age in a manner that is not graceful. And so today we are going to discuss the definition of stress, how our body responds to stress, and then we'll be able to discuss the different things we can do to really manage the stress levels that we come across. Please remember to leave a comment, a question. Let us know what you think about the topics that we're discussing. Let us know if you have a topic that you want us to explore. And remember, in this podcast, we'll really be talking about the different elements about aging, the financial, the psychological, the mental, the physical. It's really a wholesome evaluation of the process of aging. So please leave your comments below. So we'll start with the definition of stress. What is stress? And stress is a response to a situation that a person perceives to be overwhelming. For example, one of us might sit behind this camera and be asked to talk, and they might find this situation to be so overwhelming such that they start sweating and they start fumbling and they're not able to articulate themselves very well. And yet someone else would find joy in sitting behind the camera and talking and expounding on the different topics that they're talking about. And so what I'm trying to say is that the stimuli may be the same, but the response is what differs. So all of us face different stimuli, and some of us are able to handle the different situations that we face, and some are unable to handle the different situations. And stress is good. Stress is very good because it enables us to handle the various situations that we face. For example, if I tell you have an exam tomorrow, that stress, the body's response to that adverse situation will enable you to concentrate on what you're reading, to stay up late, to wake up in the morning, and to be in that state of mind where you'll be able to tackle the exam properly, right? However, if that stress becomes prolonged to such an extent where it doesn't make sense, the exam is over and you're still stressed about the results, you're stressed about what you wrote, then it becomes bad stress. So there is good stress that helps us handle normal situations, which we call eustress, it's good stress. And then there is bad stress, which then overwhelms the body, and it's the one that actually makes us sick. So what we are saying is that we want us to have just enough stress for us to be successful in the different endeavors that we have. Yeah? So that we have the coping mechanisms to enable us to improve our performance for the different stimuli that we face in life. However, if we are constantly stressed or distressed for a prolonged period of time, then that feeling becomes unpleasant. That feeling depletes our energy. We become sluggish, right? It decreases our overall performance because we lose concentration. We are unable to think straight and think clearly, right? And over time, it leads to mental fatigue. And that distress then ultimately leads to actual physical illness, right? And so there's something we call a stress cycle, where you have low energy and then you're faced with a challenge and the stress levels go up and you handle the situation, and then over time your stress levels come down because you have handled the situation, and then you either get into rest or burnout. But it's really a curve which enables us to handle situations, and then the body comes back to normal, and then we are able to refresh and replenish. However, when you have distress, it means you're constantly stressed and your stress levels are at optimum, right? And what happens is what I'm about to explain. For example, if I'm seated here and you tell me to run to a particular place, I might not be able to run, but if a lion suddenly appeared here, I would reach that target and even exceed the target. Why? Because whenever we are faced with a stressful situation, we produce stress hormones. And those stress hormones in the short term enable us to meet whatever target it is, okay? And so when we are facing whatever challenge it is, there are some simple signs of stress that everyone knows. You fumble with words, you feel sweaty, Sometimes you feel like your stomach is rumbling. Sometimes you feel like you're not thinking very straight. And that's what we call the fight or flight mechanism. In medicine, we call that the fight or flight mechanism, which enables you to face challenges that you face, whether it's running from a lion, sitting for exam, going for your first date, or even burying a loved one. Those high stimuli situations are handled very well by the stress hormones. So the body has short-term stress hormones, as we spoke about, the adrenaline, and so forth. And these hormones are produced for a very short time, right? And they enable us to face the problems that we should be facing on a daily basis. And we are able to successfully handle them and come out victorious. However, long-term production of these stress hormones also leads to the production of cortisol. And now this cortisol is the one that breaks down the body, right? And so there's a nice pictorial here that describes the long-term effects of stress, right? So there's a root cause of stress. Your mind perceives a problem. You're probably thinking about the exam that is coming and you have not read, or there's rent arrears that need to be paid and you don't have the money, or there's a deadline that is coming and you have not finished the work or the report that needs to be done. So there's a root cause. There's something that's causing you worry. And so in the short term, you respond by producing stress hormones. Your blood pressure goes high, your heart rate goes up, your blood sugar will go up because the body is preparing to meet the challenge that is coming, and it needs enough energy to be able to tackle that problem. And because of that, then there's increased inflammatory agents that are produced in the body, which even reduce the immune function in the short term, right? So the symptomatology of that is that we have reduced sleep. Someone is not able to sleep very well because you're stressed, you feel tired, you're unable to eat, you're unable to eat well, or you have very serious food cravings, you have digestion problems, and that is in the short term, right? And we said we want stress to be in the short term so that you find a problem, get stressed, handle the problem, and the stress levels go down. However, when you have prolonged stress with cortisol production, then you actually ultimately get into hormonal imbalances where you even have thyroid dysfunction, adrenal fatigue, which is one of the organs in our body that produces hormones. You have low sex hormones, which affects your sexual function. You have inflammation where your joints are aching, your muscles are aching. There's just pain and inflammation everywhere. And you can even progress into getting hypertension and diabetes. And so you see that it's really a cycle that then becomes a never-ending cycle. You have something that triggers stress, you have short-term stress and the different response factors that are produced. But if you don't handle your stress well, then you have long-term stress and long-term cortisol production, which then leads to the body being broken down over time. And over time, then you get hormonal imbalance, right? Anxiety. We get depressed. We get weight gain, yeah? We get hypertension and increased heart rate, which then damages our heart. We are unable to function mentally because of the long-term stress exposure. We are constantly moody, upset, or depressed, or our brain is foggy. Sometimes we call it mom brain, where you have taken care of the children for so long until you're not able to think very fast or very clearly, right? So those are the mental complications that come up with long-term stress exposure. We also have physical exposures where the heart, you get into a patient starts having heart diseases. They can develop ulcers, and this is very common for people who are constantly stressed. They're always saying that their stomach is uncomfortable or they're having heartburn, right? People start getting consistent headaches, right? Or sexual dysfunction. We start having men telling us that they're unable to perform in the bedroom. And these are physical manifestation of long-term stress exposure. Behaviorally, you have, because you're distressed and your mental state is not very clear, these are people who start getting accidents on the road. At the workplace, they're very aggressive. Anything, they're ready for war, Or if it's a student, you start seeing poor performance in school because their mental state is altered. Or if it's someone else, then you start seeing absenteeism from work, absenteeism from school, because we all react and respond to stress differently. And so what we have said is that people get triggers and then they get stressed. And this stress is good. It's beneficial because it helps us overcome challenges that we face, right? And so stress is good over a short time period. However, when stress becomes prolonged, then you get cortisol production, and this then imbalances the body and causes so many problems and diseases in the body. So it's so important going forward that you are able to handle stress. And the next discussion is really stress management. How do we handle stress, right? And the first thing we need to do is to eat properly. Yeah. We've said when you're stressed, the immune function dips. And so when we're eating properly, that means we're taking in our fruits and vegetables, which comes in with all the nutrients that we need and all the vitamins that we need, and all those elements that are in our fruits and vegetables strengthen our immune system, and we keep off some of these diseases that come about because of stress, right? We need to exercise. We have just realized that stress causes production of bad hormones, but exercise produces good hormones, and the good hormones are called endorphins. So immediately you exercise, you rub off the effects of the stress hormones. It's very important that every so often we are able to go out and do at least 30 to 45 minutes of aggressive exercise, because of course it keeps our heart healthy, it keeps our mind strong and energetic, it keeps our muscles strong, but more than that, it produces happy hormones. So the next thing we need to make sure that we are doing is hydration. We need to take in water. And water is very important because it keeps, of course, our joints and muscles happy, but it enables all the other small functions and chemical reactions in the body to continue. Remember, we are trying to fight stress, so we need to make sure that all the cells in the body and all the functions thereof are optimized, right? The next thing we need to do is go out to the sun. Sunlight is very important. And in fact, studies have found that people who live in the North Pole commit suicide because it's so gloomy and sad and they're not able to get vitamin D, right? And so Africans are blessed because we're in the tropics and the sun is always there, and vitamin D is excellent for the moods. Remember, we said we need happy hormones, and once you have the happy hormones, you're able to manage the stress. The other very important thing is that vitamin D is very important for immune function. It boosts the immune function. Remember, we said stress reduces your immune system and weakens your immune system. So going out to the sun for 15 minutes every day, in the morning 15 minutes, in the evening 15 minutes, will be very beneficial to our health. Okay? The next thing we need to do is air. Yeah? And they actually call it air. We need to breathe in properly. When you're seated, sit up straight and breathe in. The more we breathe in properly, ensure that our posturing is correct, and we are intentional with how we are breathing, we are getting in more oxygen. And what we are doing is that we are optimizing the amount of oxygen in the various organs, and most especially in our brain. Remember, we said we want our brain to be optimized. And so just breathing in intentionally and making sure that there's enough oxygen going into our body optimizes how our body functions and especially how our brain functions. Exercise, of course, the more you exercise, the more oxygen you're getting into your body. So exercise again improves the oxygen concentration in the body. Next, we go to rest, right? Rest is so important. And in our last episode, we spoke about sleep. It's so important for you to sleep. When we are sleeping, a lot of the things that we have been reading about or processing during the day or thinking through, they get consolidated in our brains, and we are able to come up with solutions or internalize all these things or create long-term memory, which is very beneficial to us, especially if you're a student. If you want to remember things, sleep enough, because then the brain is able to integrate and convert all these things into a long-term memory. There's also a very important hormone called melatonin that is produced in the body, and it's produced when we sleep. And this sleep should be between 10 and midnight, right? And when this hormone is produced, it's able to repair the body and restore the cells and enable us to age in a graceful manner. So rest is very important. And lastly, spirituality, trusting in a higher being, finding our purpose so that we stay connected with family members, those we love, and those in our community. I can't finish this session without talking about mentorship and coaching. Remember, we are talking about stress and managing stress. And the Bible says that there's nothing new under this world. So what might be stressing me will not stress you, because there's someone somewhere who has gone through it. And so it's very important to reach out and find someone who can talk to us, advise us, support us, guide us, help us, mentoring us through the different issues that we are going through, or really coaching us through the different challenges that we are going through. So mentorship and coaching is one of the things that we really need to get to so that we are able to manage the stress that we are going through. Remember, we need to be in a process of growth where we are always moving from point A to point B, and life never moves in a straight line. You might think that you're now moving to your next success story, but life being life, it might just be another reality where you dip and you move 5 steps back before you move back into your success realm. So life is stressful, but please find ways of managing the stress. Find a mentor, find a coach. Remember to do all these things that we have spoken about. Optimize your health, optimize your money. Remember, in this channel, we are all about retiring with age and retiring with grace. And we welcome you to keep listening to us and to engage with us. Ask us any question. Please comment below and let us know if you have any other topics that you want us to discuss or any other topics that you want us to expound on. Reach out and hope to see you in our next lesson. Thank you very much.